Welcome to the Banana Can. This video I'm going to cover the grid pane a little bit more. I'm going to demonstrate the layout of how it's set up, everything visually. Going to first start out with going back to our same project I've been working on the last couple of videos, and I'm going to handle an exception that I haven't messed with up to this point. So in the start function in our driver class, I have this exception that up to now I hadn't been handling, but I'm going to go ahead and handle that right now. And all I'm going to do is just basic try catch. Not going to do anything with it except for print the stack trace for now, but at least it cleans it up just a little bit. Instead of just throwing it into the oblivion. Okay. Also, since I'm going to be importing a lot from the UI package, I'm going to go ahead and just import the entire UI package. It'll save me from having to add imports every time I want to add another scene. And then, speaking of scenes, I'm going to go ahead and add a new scene class, and we'll call this one grid layout screen. Superclass is going to be my screen template. And here we go. So that being started, let's go get rid of this to-do. Don't need that. And we'll start the same way we were doing before. Initially, run the super constructor. And set up the main menu things. Actually, you know what? That brings me to one more thing I want to do real quick. Under our screen template, last video I refactored the variable names for the main menu button and label text to make it easier to keep track of what they actually were. And I didn't change the getters and setters. So I'm going to refactor these as well, so that way it matches the variable. To keep it consistent. Okay, there we go. So that way now on my new thing, when I go and let's see here, constructor. Oh, that's why I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. I need to make the constructor start to put that in the initialize. Okay, now super, call the super constructor. Then we'll set the main menu button text. label text. Let's see here, display. Something simple. Okay. And after that, do the same thing we always do. Initialize, run the initialize. Okay. Now, under this, we should just be able to, oh yes, forgot about one very important thing. Adding it to our main menu. And there we go. Of course, it's going to be just a blank for now because we haven't done anything, but that's what we're going to do. So, going back to the initialize on your grid layout. First thing I'm going to do is set up a series of labels that just go through the entire thing to give you an idea of what the spacing, like how it's actually set up. So for that, I'm going to create a series of loops just to loop through the entire thing. Rows, just do that many for now. And in here, we'll do columns. This one we actually have a set limit on. Now in here, like I said, I'm just going to set up a series of labels. I can type. And what I'm going to set it, the text on it, I'm going to set up to equal the row and the column. So just something simple that'll give us an indicator of where it's at. Okay, let's see, import label from JavaFX and oh, that's why I have a comma instead of a plus sign for some reason. Okay. And I'm going to set the font. We'll set it to the big font. And now, next couple things I'm going to do are to make sure the label spreads out to the entire row, or the the entire column width of where it is. So that way it'll, instead of just mapping or instead of sizing to the text, it'll size to the column. And what I'm also going to do is set the border to be red. so that way it'll surround the entire label with a border. I'm doing this with a CSS style sheet. In this case, it's border dash color and red. And I also want to set the alignment. We'll do center alignment, so that way it'll just look nice and neat. And then, of course, add it to our main pane. And we're going to go with, this particular thing is column row, not row column. The add, it goes to the column index and then the row index. So we'll do this. Now, if I run this, it's just going to put these over the previous things that are labeled on there. Now I want to point out a few things. One, the button has a different height, makes the row height a different amount than just a label. So you see how down here is uniform. Everything's uniform height. However, when there's a button, it changes the height in general of that particular row. So that's one thing to take into consideration when you're doing alignments. You have to be either be very specific on what you want to do with height when using different elements in order to get a uniform alignment. You can do that by setting, like changing the constraints or setting the preferred height, but I didn't do it here. Although, if you notice the columns, since we set the button equal the column width in the UI settings is 3, for the button, it takes up exactly 3 columns. Also, elements can go off beyond the window. They can go, you can go off on either direction. Either you can go off, have a greater number of columns. I could include a 12th column in my grid pane, or a 15th. Actually, I think I went up to 15. Yeah, I put 16, so I went up to 15 rows, but the 15th row is not visible because it's beyond the screen height, the actual distance it takes up for the height I set in the UI settings. So just keep that in mind when you're designing your layout. What I'm going to do on this particular layout, I'm actually going to show you how to remove an object from, or at least one way to remove an object from the grid pane. So the template, if you have additional objects, it's going to, we'll take care of that. I'm going to have, when I'm finished, you'll have a uniform layout of these little labels throughout the entire thing. So what I'm going to do, I'll show you what it does when first when I'm going to set a button to invisible. So we'll set the scene specific button visibility as false. I'll run it again. And see, the scene specific button's gone. However, you notice the spacing for the button is still there because the object is still there, it's just not visible. So that doesn't fix our spacing issue. The same thing if I did this button, it would leave the spacing. So that is something that we're gonna handle. So this line I don't actually even need. Now, what I am going to do is under the template. Under the template, I'm going to add a couple of getters. Basically, I'm going to get the index of those two buttons. And where that comes into play is I'll use that index in order to remove them from the main pane. So it's basically just a simple getter, and all it's going to do is return the index. So okay, this gets the children. Essentially, it's in a list. It's in an observable list. I think, yeah, it's in a list, and so essentially, what we have right now is the list of all the things that we've added for the screen template to the main pane, and then from there, we're going to get the index of the let's see here, index of. We're going to get the index of the main menu button. So this will return whatever index is assigned to that particular main menu button, depending on which order we've added, and so on and so forth. And we're going to do the same thing for the other button. And I'm actually just going to copy this rather than type it again. So now we can go to our grid layout, and from here we can remove them. So and see, remove index, and I'm just going to do it in one statement. So remove the main menu button, and then remove the scene specific button. And I'll actually show you what it looks like after you remove just one of them. Okay, the scene specific button's still here. Notice the extra spacing for the button, but the menu button spacing is gone. So that obviously worked. And go ahead and remove that. And also I'm going to set the scene specific label visibility to false, just to get rid of that, so that way we have this. And here's our grid. So it's uniform entirely, and you notice it goes off the edge. So in order to, I'll leave that up there, but obviously, yeah, you'd have to that. We could adjust the scene height if you wanted a specific number of rows or something like that, or so on and so forth. Now we have one small problem though. Right now, there's no main menu button, so I can't click on it to get back to the main menu. And we didn't set up anything for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to set up, how to fire the action from the main menu button, so we can get back to the main menu. And essentially go back into screen template. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up another, it's not a getter per se, but I'm just going to set up return to main menu function. So don't return anything. And all we're going to do is fire the main menu button. Even though we removed it from the pane, the button still exists on the template. So that will allow us to go back to here, and on the grid layout, I'm going to add a key press event, basically, so we can just hit escape. So I'll do it under the initialize. Let's see here. Set C key press event. As a matter of fact, I can save a lot of typing because I've done something similar. Okay. Now instead of, this is the same thing. You hit escape on the main menu and it exits the program. So on this particular one, here's the action, or action here. Okay. Actually, let me make that an inline. Okay. Now this is the scene, setting a scene key press event, which we'd set up on the scene template. Let's see here, right here. We send it an event handler or key event, and it sets it. So this particular thing, the event we send it is to, basically to right there. So in this, we're just overriding what happens to when a key is pressed. And we're just checking to see if escape is pressed, and then we're going to do whatever action we put here. So in this case, we're going to call our new function that we just set up, which is return to main menu. And now that should work. So now when we go to our grid pane layout, we can just hit escape, and it goes to the main menu. So that's that. That's the end of this particular video demo. Wanted to show the layout of a grid pane, and here it is. We'll continue the next video. And this is Banana Can.